Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Say Hi to the Future, Ingenious Thinkers, a podcast highlighting Ingenuity's human side. My name is Ken Tenser, curator of Say Hi to the Future, helping leaders think differently in the face of uncertainty and ambiguity. With me today is Andrea Gori, Chief Earth Officer and founder of Aluminum.com, the leading source of sustainability information and data, and one of AngelList's top digital startups in Europe. Like this video if you enjoy our show, and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Andrea Gori, welcome to the 100th episode of Ingenious Thinkers.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon, everyone.
So, Andrea, today we're going to be talking about sustainability, and of course, I'm going to start with diabetes instead. So, it's a few years ago now. I see this advertisement for diabetes, or to help us fight diabetes, and it starts to equate eating a chocolate bar to potentially losing your leg in 30 years. And I'm thinking to myself, my father passed from complications of diabetes, but I'm thinking, I cannot connect with that message. It's too much of a leap for me to make. And then, as I start to get into the sustainability realm, or started to a number of years ago, I had that same issue. 1.5 degrees as a CEO for 30 odd years, and from manufacturing to real estate, I don't know what 1.5 degrees meant or means. And I didn't understand how to make it real for me as a leader within my organization. So within sustainability, is there a message issue that we need to deal with business leaders?
Is definitely the challenge of our generation. And I always say it is a challenge of all generations. Maybe I briefly introduce myself, and on top of thanking you, Ken, for having me. My background has been working as a consultant. I was a global green champion of BCG for many years. And exactly that question was the question always on the table. Okay, I feel I would like to do more. Everyone feel would like to do more. If you ask anyone, would you prefer like a green planet, fresh air, or you prefer a lot of pollution and terrible health around you? No one would tell you I prefer a lot of pollution. Everyone would say I prefer some green air and a greener planet. Mm-hmm. But still, all of us, we struggle to take action. All of us, we struggle to understand what we can do. And this is precisely one of the reasons why we created Illuminum, because we believe that knowledge, good examples are key to change this world for the better. And so let's go concretely to your point, Ken. So as a CEO, as a manager, what should we do? The good news is today there are a lot of things that we can do. The examples of everyone is literally like pivotal to make some change happen. And I always start by asking, let's investigate what is your core business. Let's investigate what is your core source of impact or emissions, or you might say water footprint on this planet. And let's try to act on that one. Just applying the simple rules of 80-20, looking at the biggest area of your engagement and the biggest areas of impact, we're already going to find very soon the practical answers of what we can do and what we should do.
Andrea, on top of looking at the core, though, are there some fundamental business reasons that CEOs are not thinking about on a daily basis? Meaning, the next generation, they perform their own audits on companies, on their sustainability, whether it's real, whether it's fictional, or just a statement, if you will. The changing weather and its impact on supply chain and operations. Is there a level of just, here are the 3 things that are going to impact your bottom line if you do not act? Is that level missing?
Let me be very bold here. The future will be green or will not be. every person of science, but every person of business, every person of good spirit understood it. Now, the choice is between convenience of continuing to play a game of not understanding or realizing it fast. Now, specifically, like when it comes to the business dynamics, I think is where you are going, and I love it. I think we're now like de facto in a situation where companies are, on one side, greenwashing. Very simply, they've understood they need to show some actions, but very often they pretend they do much more than what they're really doing for this planet. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, we environmentalists need to do like a criticism of ourselves. We have been pointing finger against all those trying to start the journey to get greener, and we have accused them of not doing enough of like lying to us. Let me be honest. In many cases, the accusation was probably legit, but like it's also true that this is creating the second phenomenon: greenwashing on one side, green ashing on the other side. Companies that now are afraid of communicating everything about the climate, about their impact, because of the risk of being accused for not doing enough, for doing it wrongly. So now I think what is the best probably message we can deliver together in this beautiful podcast is it's time to regain some unity. It's time to build bridges, to realize that all together we have a common need to act. It's not time to judge, like it's time to like get together and get things done.
Well, I love that. I mean, and you know, with your background, your global background at BCG, judgment just seems to be the easiest thing. I mean, as a leader, yes, you are all not afraid, but you're hesitant because there's black and white, and that's what sensationalism comes out of. It doesn't come out of your efforts. It doesn't come out of what you're trying to do, only what will get that click, get that like today. So, and as you always say, I mean, companies are so important. They're so critical to solve the climate crisis. How do we support that? And maybe give us a little background on the importance of their role in solving the climate crisis.
This is something I can answer with simple numbers, just to give you like the centrality of businesses in the solution. Too often, we like think everything is in the hands of governments, but in this way, we neglect that we citizens and even more companies are probably the real actors that can trigger the transformation we need, the sustainability we expect. Specifically on companies, today companies are responsible for over 70% of the CO2 in the atmosphere, so the gas we often talk about. Today's companies are responsible for 90% of the water losses and consumptions. Today's companies are responsible directly for 92-93% of global deforestation. So very simply, the problems we need to tackle are very often related to the actions of companies. Let's start igniting a revolution, an ESG revolution in companies. And this is probably like the first like key lever that we need to act together.
So you touched on it before. I mean, those are obviously, those are critical and you know, percentages or numbers, and they sort of highlight the importance of business. You talked a little bit before about getting to the core rather than dealing with the symptom down the road of the 1.5 degrees of the output, like what is creating it. Are there ways for companies to easily understand or get to the root of the core and then create that plan rather than, and again, sorry, but how many times people have given me, here's 3 things to look at. Well, it's like telling me, hey, say hi to the future. The future is important, but not giving me a prescription or a method by which to approach it differently. So how do you address that when you get to the core?
This is actually like a very good question. It's probably one of the reasons why it's been so acceptable, so tolerated, the lack of action today, right? Because ultimately, we said before, we didn't understand the criticality, what really is the big action item you can do. And second, even once you've understood it, we've not really like made it clear which one are the first steps that we should expect for any business, right? Let me tell you that Probably, I do not have the answer that is generic applicable to every business, but there are certain elements that are like, let's say, important for everyone. And these are the so-called dimensions that are tracked by the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you like approach your companies to those goals and bring close to your heart, close to your missions, to your very same, let's say, reason of existing of a business, tackling some of these impactful challenges of our generations, already you're given enough by giving the examples that we all need. Then more specifically, I hope you allow me, I will not go into the details of how each different business can address the water crisis, I don't know, some inequality issues, some carbon issues, and so on and so forth. But maybe, like, I take another angle to answer like the same question. What we also should not do, that is important and so often forgotten. We should not summarize all our problems with problems of merely carbon emissions. This is what we call in academic papers, we call it carbon tunnel. Like, in other words, especially like in the 90s, we have granted companies a permission to do whatever they wanted with the simple request of paying some money with the emission, the CO2 emissions they are responsible for. This is another angle to answer your question, but it says companies should not neglect that their impact is multifarious. It's about the well-being of their employees. It's about the well-being of their communities. It's about the water crisis around them. It's about the waste management they're responsible for. It's about so many factors that cannot be summarized only by looking at carbon emissions, taking that simple accounting numbers, maybe offsetting with a couple of purchase of credits, and goodbye to everything else.
You bring up the notion of offsets, and it seems like, as you said, it takes away to me the understanding of the impact of the situation. It's just another cost line, another accounting line, and I'm not saying that that's everybody has to be an altruist, but it seems to be just an overall pass for a corporation. Do you see it that way?
I see exactly that way. So fully with you that has been too easy so far, like to hide ourselves into like the simplicity of simply like looking at the carbon metrics, or accepting that we can have some pledges that are very generic and very like far away in the futures. Now, like it's time to really, like, as we said, reassess our criticalities, act on the biggest line of our criticalities, take close to our heart some sustainable development goals, show the examples in those, and bring everything together. I know the answer is intentionally generic, but is as simple as it sounds in the first step that we need to do.
So what role does aluminum play in this? I mean, you've been recognized as a leading source of sustainability information and data. You've been, one of the top startups in Italy. What role do you play, or can you play, in this conversation?
I love this question, Ken. So maybe we can briefly summarize aluminum for the friends that are meeting us for the first time today. So aluminum was born simply as a platform to bring together the different services of sustainability. We started with two of them, information and data. In information, like with a platform free for all, we had the simple mission of bringing together all the quality insights that are helpful decision makers, that are helpful for like normal citizens to approach the world of sustainability. In this, we believe that the spreading of quality information, the spreading of knowledge is actually essential to take informed decisions, to give the examples that you were mentioning before. And today specifically, to say what is the mission of aluminum in our expanded scope, in our next continuation. Today we're working a lot on the topic of ESG. I'm actually very happy to take these eventually, some following questions. And in the scope of ESG, we have exactly taken on one mission, it's important to bring radical transparency to what is the sustainable performance of companies. So we concisely, we have two big action items. Number one, spreading quality information and knowledge on sustainability. And second, bringing radical transparency on what our businesses are doing in sustainability.
I love what you just said. I mean, not just about the platform, but quality information and radical transparency. That seems to be one of the major problems with ESG itself, is just understanding what information is real, what information is practical or pragmatic and applicable. How do you get through the incredible level of noise out there with aluminum?
It's never easy, because too often we lack information itself. So the lack of information is even a bigger problem in sustainability than the noise. And when you lack information, it's very difficult to have the data points that enable you to prove something wrong. So it's ultimately like a sort of a cycle, a negative cycle that spirals around. But let me give some concrete actions that we're working on. For what regards data, that is probably the backbone of that quality of information mentioned. We are now more and more sophisticated in estimating what are the true numbers behind actions, companies, policies. And this is something incredible that our team is realizing. And I can tell you, with the simplicity of triangulating data points, like the geography of an action, like the number of people engaged, the type of businesses engaged, already now we can have a margin of error that is acceptable to start understanding and flagging when we are facing some pure greenwashing, some false information, or when on the contrary, we are having finally some transparency that is valuable for the entire system. Second, for what regards the pure, let's say, qualitative information, right? The stories that we want to read. So Illuminum did something very simple, we started by inviting the most reputable thought leaders in the industries. Now, if you're going to go on our website, we're overwhelming thousands of them, including ministers, scientists, CEOs that write and publish exclusively on Illuminum. And that one was the first, let's say, guarantee of quality that we could bring. These people are recognized for being thought leaders in their field. These people put their face next to what they write, and we're very proud to provide a platform. Lastly, for what regards instead bringing a comprehensiveness of the debate, we also have an algorithm, AI powered, that aggregates the many sources of information that are deemed quality ones, so the most famous publications, and we also provide live summaries to everything they write, so that our users immediately they are confronting with these three data points, the pure data themselves, the exclusive insights and opinions of the thought leaders of our planet on sustainability, and third, the aggregated and agnostically aggregated publications that go out across the media of the world. So this has been our recipe for advancing this cause.
I listened to you, and I love what you're saying again, and I know I repeat this a number of times, because look, without credible information and data, you can't find a true solution to anything. You mentioned the leaders of our planet, the leaders of our governments, excuse me, and policymakers. Where does the rubber really hit the road, though? Because I mean, I've been involved with innovation for decades, either as an entrepreneur or then writing about it, studying it. To me, governmental policies are flawed because of the process in which they're developed. You can't really have a right and a wrong or a left and a right, but somehow government needs to manage a left and a right when they put a policy together. Information, data, next steps really aren't a left and a right. They're a road, might curve, but they're a road. So what role do you see governments having, and are they the critical driver here?
I I like a lot your perspective, Ken, but let me stress, luckily or unluckily, climate is the most transnational topic, challenge ever. As the simplicity of a pollution that can comes out from I don't know, the chimneys of Shanghai, but actually having an impact there in your city in Canada, to the problem of our oceans that ultimately having repercussions in every single angle of our planet. So the first important message is that we are all in the same planet. We are all having the same consequences. Of course, with different nuances, but in big scale, they are very similar if you live in Canada, if you live in Italy, or if you live in China. Now, let's take the angle of governments. Government, of course, are necessary. Governments are the one providing the playground, so setting rules that can bring us in the right directions. But by the very same nature of government action, we should not always expect governments to be ahead of the curve. We citizens should be the one that push our governments to take the right bold policies, to push our companies to take the right bold actions. So quick answers, government are necessary. They will ultimately be responsible for the right framework, the right laws, the right policies. But our governments will never feel the compelling need to act until it is as a citizen to ask with a clear, united voice that change.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank you for that, Andrea. So let's take it from up here. Let's take it from the top down to aluminum again. What is your solution for the future of ESG? We know government's role. We know we've talked about companies' role. I mean, albeit briefly, what is your solution?
Yeah, first of all, we need to be humble because every solution is just a beautiful attempt in the right direction. But we have worked restlessly for the past months on addressing the key problems of the world of ESG. Maybe if you allow me, Ken, I will actually start by telling you the problem, and then I go on immediately to the solutions. The world of ESG today has mainly three big problems. By design, number one, we have reduced the entire discussions on what is green, what is not green, on their indexes. Clear examples. You want to judge that company or that other company, is we say is B minus, is 24 out of 60, is 6 out of 8. Literally a lot of numbers that are uncorrelated and unclear to everyone. Here, let me always say the solution next to the problem. To this unclarity of indexes, it's time to bring back real numbers and ask, what is the number of people, a number of women behind that company? What is the number of renewable energy behind that product? What is the number of emissions behind that company? And this is actually already like a revolution of simplicity and transparency. Second, now, in our attempt to move from that carbon tunnel we discussed before, from that risk of having the exaggerated simplicity of looking only at carbon emissions, now we have done the opposite mistake. Now we have indexes, as we said, that are composed of thousands and thousands of KPIs. I give you an example of some big companies that even brag to have 10,000 KPIs to assess the sustainability of a company. Let me be clear, I don't dislike precisions, but here we are running exactly another big risk. We're running the risk of creating an arbitrage by which each company can simply decide which story to tell. Because instead of focusing on few important common parameters that are comparable across companies, that are clear, impactful for everyone, each one decides to narrate a different story that maybe I can summarize with a Latin sentence. We say, corruptissima repubblica plurime leges. The more the laws, the more corrupt is the republic. And so it created a system that helps not those reading the information, but those literally writing the information. And this is actually the second big problem of ESG. The third big problem of ESG, again, by design, we have chosen a system that is looking at risk, not impact. Let me give you here a third concrete example. When today you put $1 into an ESG fund, so a fund that is considered to be sustainable, green, in your good spirit, in your good attitude, you very often tend to give that money to a group of developers, maybe in New York City, maybe in some other realities, company like Spotify to listen to the music, or like to play video games. Nothing against listening to the music, of course, but you understand that it's not there, the impact that we all need. So we have just created a system by which what is good is what has less risk for the environment, instead of being what has most impact for the better. So if I can summarize, we have a lot of indexes instead of real numbers. We have too many KPIs and no simplicity. We have a system that look at risk rather than looking at impact. And we have just decided to do the opposite. And so the solution we wanted to bring is a platform. First of all, free for all. Second, easy to access and bring in the real numbers of every company, where you can monitor in one click the environmental performance of that business and that other, where you can take your investment decision, your let's say, job decision, where you can take your procurement decision. So look how simple, and I stop on this answer here. Look how simple would it be if you can decide what to buy or where to work, by having clear in your mind that the company is really reducing emissions, is really having diversity in its team, is really acting for what matters to you. Today you cannot. This is something that we took as a challenge, and hopefully we are delivering with our next product.
Well, thank you for that description. Thank you for taking up the challenge. And Andrea, today is our 100th episode of Ingenious Thinkers, starts to come to a close here. One last question for you. You say you took up the challenge. Why you? I mean, you are the global green champion for BCG. I mean, that is pretty rarefied air in terms of the business community globally. Why did you take up the challenge yourself and with your partners and collaborators at Aluminum?
That's probably the most beautiful question, because it's very personal. always like to thank the people that helped me to realize the need of giving the example, the need of taking the challenge. As you said before, Ken, I come from Tuscany. I come from one of those territories where nature is probably everything. Is something that you see as a graceful mother. And I've seen with my eyes the consequences of climate change only in the few years that lifespan allowed. And at that point, I really said to myself, you want to be guided, because this world is changing us, is actually guiding us through a new reality, or you want to guide something for the better. I felt that compelling need inside. Those people that were somehow next to me, they gave me the right motivation to say, Andrea, try. And so I became one of the many, because the first message to pass is that I'm not alone in this. I'm one of the many climate quitters, those that leave a big corporate career, they dare but say, we give it a try. We take the most beautiful years of our life to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And now, let me tell you the most beautiful thing. There is not a single day where I don't meet people a bit like us that have the same willingness to have a lasting positive impact. And we're ultimately the secret for each other to keep going. And hopefully, like in all the good stories, the good ones will win.
Well, thank you for sharing that. The passion comes through very clearly. Andrea Gori, Chief Earth Officer and founder of aluminum.com. Thank you so much for sharing your time today with Say Hi to the Future listeners and viewers.
Thanks to you all for having me, and all the best to you, Ken, and to your community.
Thank you.